Okay, welcome to our fourth alumni chat for fall 2022. I want to thank Sophia Ciatto for being here today. Sophia is a pre-sale administrator of online sales for Phillips Auction House, and she is a 2021 art history graduate. So that's just a very brief Sophia 411, and there's a lot more we will learn. But Sophia, can you tell us a little bit about your role? Because I admittedly pre-sale administrator of online sales is a mouthful, and I'm sure you can kind of tell us a little bit what that means.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Jackie, for having me. And I'm excited to speak with you all and answer your questions later on. Like Jackie said, I graduated in 2021. I was an art history major and Italian minor, and I started at Phillips in September of 2021. Essentially, my role, or I guess more broadly to explain it, like at an auction house, the entry level position is called a sale administrator. So you facilitate what happens before and after a sale in terms of client communication, object creation. So that's like data management. And then you help with shipping. I work on an online sales team that hosts kind of smaller, lower cost items that the sale happens once a week. So they split the traditional role into two because it's very, very fast paced and happening every week. So I just cover all of the stuff that happens before the sale. So my week is kind of like Groundhog's Day because the sale happens every week. I do pretty much the same thing week to week. But the general idea of the role is contract creation. So when a client comes to Phillips and wants to consign with us, I'm creating the objects that they're bringing in, and then I'm producing a contract. I'm not writing contracts. There's a template. And then I support the client with signing the documents, shipping their works to our warehouse, and then I help them through the process even after the sale. So I speak with them about updating reserves. So a reserve is kind of the number that the client and the auction house has decided on, that it's the lowest amount that you would sell something for. So I support them with that. I send them sale results, emails, and then if a work goes unsold and they want it back, I support them with returning works. The role is kind of crazy and there's lots of other aspects, but generally it is a lot of client communication and data management.
So as I'm hearing it, it sounds like this is a pretty typical role, like an entry level for new hires. Would that just be at Phillips Auction House, or is that pretty typical across auction houses, or maybe you don't even know the answer to that question? Just curious what you would say. And then what is the next step on that career ladder?
Yeah, it's called different things at different houses, but it's pretty much the same role at the big three houses, Sotheby's and Christie's being the other two. Like I said, they call it something different, but like in terms of what the role actually is, it's pretty much the same as I've interacted with some of other sale admins from the other houses.
No, that's great to know. So, because you and I have known each other for so many years, I know that you've ultimately wanted to be in an auction house and you got there. So I know the folks on the line, they might be curious about different things, might be art history, or art museums or auction houses. And I know you have experience in both. What would you tell, and also I recognize the folks on the line also might be undergrads and graduate students that are in the art and museum studies graduate program. So any advice that you would give to folks that are interested in either path, who are interested in art museums and are interested in auction houses? So curious what your thoughts are there.
Yeah, like Jackie referenced, I kind of tried like a bajillion and one things before landing on an auction house, mostly because the industry is so small. And I just wanted to see kind of what I was most interested in. I think the paths are similar but different. Museums are very traditional. Sometimes they require additional schooling, master's programs. The entry-level positions are harder to get into rather than auction houses. It's a little bit more loose, like having a degree in art history has served me, but definitely wasn't necessary. I would say just try out like everything. Like I said, everything's pretty interconnected, and the skills that you gain in like a museum versus a gallery versus an auction house are going to be very different, but you'll be able to kind of carry those skills with you. I think the other thing is all of these places have specific like arts oriented departments. And they also have like the general departments that you would think of in any company, like marketing, communications, accounting, etc. But if you're interested in kind of those art-oriented departments, at an auction house, there's specialist departments, and at museums, there are departments based on, the area of art, as you all are, I'm sure, familiar with. They just require a little bit of different focuses. Like I said, sometimes at museums, their master's programs are needed. And sometimes like at an auction house, like you can come in as a young person with just like a bachelor's of arts. But yeah, I don't know if that really answered the question all that well, but it's definitely worth trying any internship out or any experience that you have in any of these fields, because they are small and the world is very interconnected.
No, that's really helpful. And it's true. It's like these, art museums, galleries, auction houses, they're businesses. So they have marketing and communications departments, as well as all those other, finance. So if you're interested in those other job functions, that's also a possibility. So, but knowing that you're interested in, I think, more classic direction that I think a lot of students are interested in, I'm curious of like some skills that you think that would be helpful to develop, anything from like language to Excel, or even classes that you took.
Yeah, sure. Specific to my role, I think like the overall liberal arts major prepared me, just being a liberal arts major prepared me for this role in terms of organization. Like the art history major, having those classes where you had to memorize dates and artist names and that sort of thing, that specifically wasn't relevant, but the process of going through like long lists of objects and understanding like where works, dates and that sort of thing, that has prepared me, because it helped me like kind of form consistent routines. Like every exam I was working on these like kind of charts and memorizing all of these works, and that the organizational skills that I built as an art history major has served me well, because the role is very chaotic and there's lots of different parts, and I have to keep track of each individual one each week. So the organizational skills, for one, definitely has served me well. I think an overall appreciation and passion for art is a plus, which I'm sure everyone on this call has. It's something that just kind of comes along with being in a major like art history. So that's helped me, because the kind of mundane day-to-day stuff is boosted by like being able to walk down in our gallery space and appreciate art in person, and kind of understanding collectors' point of view and their care and their excitement and sometimes their worry for their art. That's definitely helped me. Language skills are always a plus in the arts, not necessary, but definitely a plus. Studying Italian was a dream and a struggle for me. Has it helped me at Phillips? Not necessarily, but I definitely have had some clients try to speak to me in Italian, and that's been funny, I suppose. Any sort of club that you're doing at Georgetown, any sort of interacting with other people, building people skills, that's important, because I get calls from clients spontaneously all day long, and being able to work with people and be patient and understand, like I said previously, like their art is very important and a part of them. And that's something that I didn't recognize coming in. Like this is a big part of like who they are. So being able to be patient with people when they're being difficult and how to correspond in a professional way. I think that comes with being a Georgetown student. So that was just something I had to adjust to, like in the professional world, being patient and emailing people with care and understanding that like they need this like extra like love sounds so dramatic, but it really is. Like the client service aspect of the role is something that you have to kind of like recognize the importance, and it comes along with continuing to work and understanding how to handle people.
That makes so much sense. When we think about it, like in the career space, it's like hard skills and soft skills, where I was thinking hard skills, like databases and languages, but there's also a lot of soft skills that are needed in various roles and professions. So it sounds like conflict management, customer service. So a lot of those pieces are really important. So it's really helpful. So as I'm now thinking about like how you started along this path, because you had the internships that you had your internships. So you were building clearly a resume that spoke that you were going to go into this area. So it's time to talk about networking. And actually, let's just start there first, because a question came in to talk about like timelines and all of that. So, and you remember timelines in these industries, but let's talk about. I always think of networking as more relationship building, not something that's transactional and cold. Was it useful in helping you secure any internships or jobs? Was it helpful in terms of gathering information? So anything that you can kind of talk to us about, like networking, would be great.
Sure. Yeah. So I started kind of in high school, where I just went to our kind of alumni coordinator and just said, can you send me contacts for people in the arts? And I went to a small girls' school, so there weren't that many. But I started there, and I had a very strange internship at the FBI with an architect way back when. And that was just kind of like breaking into the industry and having the confidence to speak with somebody and then meet with them, and then this short little experience. And it opened my eyes to, and I share this because it's not relevant, but because people are always willing to help you. Most, like I would say 9 out of 10 people are willing to help you. And that was very clear to me from a very young age. So when I came to Georgetown and started leaning into the arts, I realized, it was going to be a small community, just like at my high school, but I was convinced that the alums would help me. I did the thick of my networking during COVID. So I had a lot of time on my hands, and I basically identified institutions that I was interested in. And then I typed them into LinkedIn, and then I went to the people page and I typed in Georgetown, and anybody who popped up as an alum, whether it be the master's program in museum studies or the undergraduate, just liberal arts major or art history or whatever. And I just had a template and I just sent them just messages after messages. And, there's something to be said about how you can do this. And a lot of people don't use their LinkedIn, but the people who did, like I had really great conversations. And I think I would say one thing coming out on the other side about networking is sometimes it is just a conversation, and you're maybe pulling like one thing out of that conversation that they said about whatever, like about a museum or about a gallery, and you're marking it down. And when you start applying, you remember, whatever, Sophia said this about auction houses, that doesn't really sound like my fit, or that really does sound like my fit. And it can be a little bit discouraging that sometimes it just ends with a conversation, a phone call or Zoom call, and then that's it. But when it comes time to apply for jobs, then you remember these people and you recognize, you follow up, you say, I'm applying for this. Can you pass my resume through to whomever you know? And some people are really good about it. Some people aren't, but it often takes a number of conversations. One of my first contacts was a lady who worked at Artsy. She doesn't anymore. And we called like nonstop all the time. She helped me prep for interviews, all this. And I finally met her last year and it was wonderful. Did she help me get a job? No, but she like passed me like in different directions. And that's what you don't think about when you start networking. Like maybe it's not me who can like help you as a 23-year-old, but like I can pass you along to somebody else at Phillips who could help you, who could, introduce you to the internship program or whatever it may be. So it really is, especially in the arts, a tight network, and Georgetown alums are so, so awesome. The reason I'm at Phillips is because of a Georgetown alum, and she's super wonderful. So just keep this up. It never hurts to message people on LinkedIn and to message them again if they don't respond. Jackie also told me about our database that we have at Georgetown that is just like, we're like the alumni directory. And if you feel more confident reaching out to them via an email on the directory is open for a reason. It shouldn't feel strange. So if you feel like LinkedIn isn't working for you or you don't have a LinkedIn or whatever, definitely utilize the alumni directory and just send messages out. It does not hurt. And people who care, like many of the alums I spoke to, like are going to be excited that you're interested in what they do and they're going to want to talk to you.
Sorry, Sophia. I was actually trying to find our informational interview, like how to, and stick it in the chat before you stop talking, but I'm not as quick. But I will, if Sophia gets talking at another point, I'll drop it in the chat so you guys have it. I will say about the alumni directory, I love it. It's open to seniors and I believe graduate students. So juniors, you get that access as a senior. Used to be open pretty much for all your years, but now it's not, but but you have it if you're a senior. So moving on so from the networking and connections and relationship building, then we come on to the timelines. So for those of you, all of you are Georgetown students, you see those juggernauts on campus, finance and consulting, very rigid timelines, very early timelines. And so we have a question from someone here about a senior who's graduating in the spring, and when should she start applying and reaching out? But she knows there are jobs posted at the moment, but it's usually if you're posting for a job now, you probably need it in a few weeks. So when legitimately, what are timelines like in this industry?
Yeah. As I'm sure you guys all have friends who are consulting, banking vibes, it's not like that. It's, when a job's posted, most of the time, you're needed in 2 weeks. I applied for something like in April of my senior year at a gallery, and they asked me, can you come up next week? I said, no, I haven't graduated yet. I'm finishing up, and it's a hard reality. That's not to say that like you're needed the next day, and nice people and good companies are always willing to kind of be flexible with the start date, but it's not like apply for a job in May and start in August or September, like some of these I don't even know what you call them, like these consulting like cohorts that start like as like a class. Usually in the arts, it's one singular position that one person is filling. So when you start applying, like be prepared to start thereafter, essentially. And especially, I wouldn't say that this is necessary, and a lot of things have changed with COVID, but if you're applying for a job in a city that you're not currently located, you also have to consider the move, them needing you to be physically there.
Yeah, that brings me to kind of my question about COVID and current trends, because I think they're kind of related. So has COVID changed the industry at all? Like, what have you seen? And I was also thinking about what trends are you seeing? So I'm thinking there could be a relationship there, or they could be separate. What are your thoughts about emerging trends or COVID changing the industry?
Yeah, so the art world was definitely very cautious to like come back to normal or however you want to put it. I work on an online sale, so I was able to work remotely for a long time. I still have the flexibility to work remotely whenever I want, which is very nice. It's not the case across the board, but I won't speak for, museums and such. In the auction industry, online sales are really the future. People aren't sitting in the house and bidding in person as much. It's a lot of phone bidding during our live sales and online bidding during our live sales, and just more presence online in general. I don't know if that will change, honestly, going forward. I think it really is something that people are interested in. And it's funny, like how we buy clothes online without trying them on. It's very similar, but it's higher stakes, I suppose, because you can't return it. Um, I think the industry as a whole is definitely more flexible than other industries. Like we don't have a hard in-person requirement. We still are flexible. They definitely encourage people to work from home, during the winter times, during the holidays, when you're sick, etc. So that's very nice. I don't like overall trends. I don't know, because we're really just like coming out of it now. We adapted. We didn't have live sales for a very long time. Everything was moved online. It's slowly back in person. We're allowed to have crowds now, that sort of thing. But I think like in a year we'll better know if things are permanent or we're sticking with some of the things we implemented during like the heart of the lockdown.
I think that's key, or things that I've heard other employers and alums say as well. So it sounds like increased flexibility and an encouragement to work from home when needed, which is fantastic. And it's important to know if you're going into the field that's there.
Right.
So when it comes to my questions, at least for the live part, my questions are done, except for like any last bit of advice that you might have, or anything I didn't ask. And I know it's legion. There's probably a lot of things. And during the after the recording is over and when we go live, I'm sure some of the students will have more specific. But anything you want to leave the students that are listening to this on the recording with? Any last advice?
Yeah, be patient with yourself when you're applying for jobs. Jackie knows because we emailed back and forth all summer after I graduated. Like it's very hard when you're comparing yourself to your peers and when you're frustrated that you don't have a job, but it will come. And it was really nice to start in September and have my whole summer to like work a part-time job and go on vacation with my family. And, I hate to sound like this is not to sound like a negative person, but once you start your job, like you've started your job for like your life. So I wouldn't rush into it and really be patient with yourself and don't compare yourself to others. The arts is really hard to get into and there are not as many jobs available and internships are competitive, but it will be so rewarding once you've found a job that you really like because you worked for it and you were patient and you did so much networking and all that stuff. So just don't compare yourself and enjoy the time you have before you start working, because it really is fleeting, and you should enjoy it after you graduate and during your summers.
Thank you, Sophia. So for those of you who are watching on the recording, I hope you learned a little something. Thank you so much. And for those of you who are live, if you want to hold on for a second while I stop the recording.